Why are we insisting on the word happiness? Because we're thinking long-term here. We're thinking about a revolution in the way people think about the good life. A revolution in terms of the way people think and pursue life's ultimate currency. Happiness. Happiness studies as a field focuses on much more than positive psychology. In fact, it focuses on much more than psychology. It looks at what philosophers had to say about the good life, and it looks at theology and neuroscience and history and economics and film and literature. What we decided to do at the Happiness Studies Academy is salvage happiness. In other words, help people understand the true, the deep, the real meaning of a happy life. Precisely to talk about the fact that a happy life is about pleasure, and it's also about a sense of meaning and purpose in life. And it's about relationships and generosity and giving. And it's about intellectual well-being. It's about learning. And if we, through education, teach people that happiness is about pleasure, and happiness is about meaning, and it's about relationships, and it's about physical health, and it's about intellectual development. When people truly understand that all these elements make up the concept of happiness, then they will be more likely to pursue that, more likely to attain it, more likely to help others attain it, more likely to create a better world. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome wherever you are and whenever you are. So I see we have people from, wow, all over the world. From Toronto and South Africa and New Zealand. Tina, I'm not going to ask you what time it is in New Zealand. Chicago, middle of the day. Turin, Brazil, Mexico, India, Slovakia, Israel, United States, Hawaii, Phoenix, Arizona, Portugal. Amazing. So great to Argentina. Oh, another one from New Jersey. Hi. Colombia, Dubai. Great to see you all. Welcome. So we have a full plate in front of us, and can't wait to share some of the tasty delights. So here is what we're going to do today. I will start by giving a brief lecture, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes on making choices. And then I'm going to show a quick video by Yuval Kutz, who's the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, describing the certificate program. Then Yuval is going to join me live, and we're going to respond to questions, your questions. And the questions can be about the certificate in Happiness Studies. They can be about making choices or anything related to happiness or any other topic that you want to address. We'd be happy to answer if we can. So I want to talk about choices and making choices. You see, the topic of choices is obviously a very, very important one, central to the field of happiness studies. And I remember thinking about before I forget, those of you who would like a Spanish translation, you go down to interpretation, and you click on that, and then you click on Spanish if you want to hear my presentation and the whole presentation in Spanish. Okay,
So the topic of choices and making choices is central to the field of happiness studies, and I want to share with you why. The first time I thought about this topic was I don't know, 15 years ago. I was just coming back from a trip to Asia, so the other side of the world. I was jet-lagged, exhausted, and I had a 3-day seminar ahead of me. And I remember jet lag, lying in bed, not falling asleep the night before the presentation, and saying to myself, I don't know how I'm going to get through the next 3 days. It's I'm tired because I was just teaching a lot in Asia. I had a long flight, didn't sleep, can't fall asleep now. How am I going to manage 3 days? And really not looking forward to what lay ahead. Didn't sleep well that night. Got up the next morning, went obviously to the event, and was about to start. And again, not feeling good, not looking forward. And then this sentence comes to mind, and the sentence was, Tal, at every moment in your life, you have a choice. That was 15 years ago. That sentence has not left me. At every moment in your life, you have a choice. Because I realized then that, yes, I didn't have a choice about the fact that I didn't sleep, that I was jet-lagged, that I was exhausted, that I had well, I had a choice. I could not teach, but that wasn't really a choice that I saw as a viable one. So I don't have a choice about that, but I do have a choice about how I approach the next 3 days. And just before the presentation started, I said to myself, I'm going to see this as a privilege, because it really is a privilege to be able to share what I care about so much with others. And the workshop started with high energy. Yes, I was tired during those 3 days, but it went well because one good deed led to another, and the energy built on itself. Following night, I slept okay. Next night, I slept very well, and it ended up going well. All starting with a choice that I made to sit up straight or stand up straight, bring energy, and move forward. And I thought then, as I have since, about the importance of making choices. And I thought about it in the context of research in the field of positive psychology. Specifically, the research by Ken Sheldon and Sonia Lubimirsky. This is the research on the now famous happiness high. Some of you may be familiar with this research. For those of you who are not, here is a synopsis. What is the happiness pie? 100% of our happiness is determined, according to that research, primarily by 3 factors. 50%, half the pie, is determined by our genes, genetic makeup, and very early experiences. Now, we have 0 control over our genetic makeup, 0 control over our early experiences. So, on average, according to this research, 50% of our happiness level is out of our control. Genes, early experiences. That's half the pie on average. 10% on average is determined by external circumstances, such as where we live, such as how wealthy or poor we are, how much money we have, such as the weather. 10% on average is determined by external circumstances. So we have 50% plus 10%. Remaining 40% on average depends 40% depends on our choices. Now, why am I emphasizing on average? Because it's important. I mean, think about it. Let's take the 10% external circumstances. And let's take a person who's right now, as we speak, living in a war zone. Do you think 10% of their happiness is determined by their external circumstances? Of course not. A great deal more than that. Or think about a person living in dire poverty who doesn't know what he will do for the next meal. They don't have enough to feed their family. Do you think 10% only can be attributed to external circumstances? Of course not. A great deal more than that. But on average, once basic needs are met for safety, security, for food, shelter, once the basic needs are met, 10%. How about genes? Our genetic makeup, on average 50%. But what about a person who was born with a very strong biological chemical predisposition to depression? We know that there are people who struggle with depression for biological chemical reasons. Their happiness levels is determined by much more than 50%. Or think about a person who was abused when they were young. Well, then their early experiences, in most cases, determines more than 50% of their happiness. Or for that matter, a person who was born with happy genes. We know such people who seemingly have very difficult life, and yet they smile all the time. They're resilient. There is a genetic underpinning to that. And then more than 50% is determined by their genetic makeup, for good or ill, on average. 50%, on average, 10%. Now, what does it mean on average 40%? Well, that, of course, depends on the other two factors: how much external circumstances impact, how much genetic makeup or early experiences impact happiness. But there's more. We can increase, and this is the important point that I'm making today, we can increase that 40% impact of choices significantly if we become mindful of the choices that we have. So on average, 40% determined by our choice. What kind of choices, for example? Choice of whether I sit down right now, stooped, or I sit up straight. That affects my well-being. Thank you. I saw a few of you sit up. Or what kind of work do I choose to do? Do I choose work that doesn't align with my values or my passions? Or do I choose work that I love to do, that I really believe in? Of course, that will affect my happiness levels. So that's a choice. Or a choice. Right after this, do I go out for a run, for a jog? Not if you're in New Zealand. Go to sleep after. Or do I lie down or sit down and do social media for the next 3 hours? That's a choice. That will affect my happiness. So all these choices, small ones. How do I sit? Do I take a deep breath right now? What bigger choices? Who do I choose to spend my time with? Where do I choose to work? Do I bring positive energy to a presentation, even though I'm exhausted? These are all choices that make a difference. On average, 40%. We increase that 40% when we become mindful, A, of the fact that we have choices, that at every moment in my life, I have a choice. And B, of the particular choice that I have and can make at this moment. Let me give you an example. So I have a question for you. Do you prefer to be grateful and appreciative of the people you care about in your life, of your loved ones, or do you want to take them for granted? That's a choice. Do you choose to appreciate your loved ones, or do you prefer to take them for granted? Now, this is a silly question. I don't think anyone on this call or anywhere in the world would say, I'd rather take my loved ones for granted. I've appreciated them for so long, enough. No, we'd all say, of course, I want to appreciate my loved ones. And yet, most people, most of the time, take their loved ones, the people they care about in their lives. Most of them take them for granted. Not because we're bad people, not because we don't care and truly love them, we do. And not because we're not smart, we are. It's because we forget. Or more specifically, we're not aware, we're not mindful of the choice that we have at every moment in our life. And at every moment in our life, we have a choice, whether how we sit down, whether we appreciate our loved ones or take them for granted, whether we go out and exercise or sit in front of the social computer screen and do social media stuff. We have a choice. What do we choose? The first step is being aware that we have a choice. In general, the second step is being aware of what choice we actually have at this particular moment, and then we do it. Because the question of, should I be grateful for my loved ones or take them for granted? It's a rhetorical question. It's a rhetorical choice, meaning the answer is obvious. But it's only obvious if we ask that question. And in order to ask this question, we need to be mindful, aware that this question even exists, that this choice even exists. Once we're made aware of it, the rest is easy. So how do we become more mindful? We become more mindful by creating reminders in our lives of the choices that we have. What do these reminders look like? Well, reminders can be, on our screensaver. The word appreciate. A reminder can be a picture on our wall. I have pictures on my wall here of my loved ones. A reminder can be a bracelet. I'm wearing this bracelet right now as a reminder to return to present moment. I've been quite stressed. Recently, I felt like I was scattered. Every time I see this, including right this very moment, it reminds me, come back to present. Be in the here and now. Or it can remind me, appreciate my loved ones. Or I can use it to remind me to take a deep breath every time I see it. Or every time I see it, to do what Dan Buettner, author of The Blue Zone, says, inconvenience myself. In other words, move, walk up and down the stairs, or whatever. So it's this reminder, or the screen, or the picture on the wall, or the quotes that I have right on my side. These are all reminders for what? To make me more mindful. More mindful of what? Of the choice that I have at every moment in my life. So I have a list of quotes. Let me read a random one here. This is by Marianne Evans, my favorite author. The important work of moving the world forward does not wait to be done by perfect men. She wrote this in the 19th century. or women, of course. And what does this remind me of? To be more mindful of being more accepting rather than being a perfectionist. It's a choice. Or a reminder to return to the here and now, or a reminder to appreciate. And by having these reminders around the choices that we have at every moment in our lives, we increase the impact of the choices that we do have. And that's how we grow that 40%. And we can impact our happiness beyond the 40%. The more mindless we are, the more that part, that 40%, the more mindless we are, the more it shrinks. The more mindful we are, the more it grows, even beyond 40 and 50%. You know, many people ask us, why is your program a year long? The Certificate in Happiness Studies. Because the actual material, it's a lot of material, but we could get it probably in 2 weeks of very intensive work, 14-hour days. We could get the material across. But that would defeat the purpose of the program, because our goal is to bring about change. And one of the ways to bring about change throughout the year is to consistently raise awareness. And if you raise awareness of the choices that people have and you do it consistently, then it becomes second nature. Then awareness of appreciation, for example, or awareness of being present, or of breathing deeply, or sitting up straight, or whatever it is that we're working on, it becomes second nature and is embedded in us. And what's also embedded is the fact that at every moment in your life, you have a choice. So this is what I want to leave you with. What choice for you would make a big difference? What choice for you would make a major impact on your life? And by the way, it doesn't have to be a major choice to have a major impact. Because what we know and what we talk about consistently throughout the course is that small changes make a big difference when consistently applied. So if you consistently apply gratitude in your life, if you consistently return to present moment awareness, if you consistently move throughout the day, these small changes will make a big difference in your life. So again, I go back to my question. What small change, what choice do you want to consistently make in your life? Is it to be more appreciative and grateful? Is it maybe to be kinder, gentler towards others? Is it to move more regularly? Is it to just come back to present moment more often because you are distracted? Is it to take a deep breath or 3 deep breaths at least once a day? What choice do you want to become more mindful of? Integrate into your way of being. 1, write it down and then create a reminder around that choice so that the 40% average can grow, so that the choices that you make can get you closer to the best version of yourself. And you know what the nice thing is about choices? Is that they're contagious. So if you introduce positive choices into your life, you're likely to impact those around you. And they are more likely to introduce this positive choice in their life. And it all starts with raising awareness. about the fact that at every moment in my life, I have a choice. An awareness of what specifically the choice that I do have. Okay, so this is it for now. I'm happy to answer, of course, any question about this or any other topic. I would like now to show you a quick video of Yuval Kutz, who is the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, my business founder, co-founder, and friend. And here he's talking about the year-long process, which is, at least in part, about raising levels of awareness about the choices that we have. And then, after this very short video, Yuval will join me and will answer any and all of your questions.
Hi, everyone. The Certificate in Happiness Studies is a year-long program. The program is offered in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Hebrew. It is composed of 2 parts, both about the same length. The first is called Introduction to Happiness Studies, and the second is called Facilitating Happiness. While the first part focuses on theory, although it has some practice in it, the second part relies more about applied techniques, although it has some theory in it. This is an interdisciplinary journey in which we will learn the relationship between not just positive psychology, but also literature, art, science, and other fields related to happiness. The entire program has a weekly structure with the following components. First of all students in the same cohort start off at the same day. And every week you receive access to 4 15 minutes pre-recorded lectures. Altogether, 1 hour. All of the lectures are delivered by Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. You can watch these lectures at your convenience. It's online, and they will always be available for you to go back and watch again. Every week, students are invited to join a 1-hour live webinar with Tal, in which they can discuss happiness, the topics of the course, and their personal lives directly with Tal. Last but not least, all students get access to their personal life journal. The life journal is a weekly follow-up to the lessons with additional exercises, extra readings, videos, journaling, meditations, yoga, and much more. You get lifetime access to this life journal, which holds the most comprehensive bibliography of research and material about happiness out there today. Actually, you're getting lifetime access to us as well. As HSA alums, you will get your Certified Happiness Trainer certificate, invitations to our annual gatherings, support from HSA faculty and the entire community. It is extremely important for us to give you all the tools needed to pursue a career and work in this field. I would like to thank you for taking the time today and for the interest you're showing in this program.
You know, I think about the certificate program, and hopefully you will join us, and you will see that the way when I write letters and reminders to the rest of the community, I refer to them as fellow journeyers rather than students. Why fellow journeyers? Because I'm going through the journey myself. Each time a cohort starts, each week when we meet for the live webinars, we just met earlier today, I go through it again. Why? Because each time I talk about these topics or read about them, it's a reminder. Now, when I talked to you about the importance of choices and showed you my bracelet and talked about appreciation, this is a reminder for me as well. And we always need reminders, because that 40% can grow to 50 and 70 and maybe even 90. The more mindful we are of the choices that we have. So we're going to respond to questions, and we have with us also a fellow journeyer, Christiana, who completed her certificate in happiness studies with us, and now she's a student in the MA program in happiness studies, which is the world's first. So thank you, Christiana, for being here, and thank you, Yuval, for being here.
Hi, Tal. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Apparently, I was just fighting a mosquito when I was not muted, so sorry for that. I won. Uh, anyway, great to see you. Always embarrassing to see myself on video. We have to stop that, Tal. And hopefully we'll see you, a lot of you, soon, because the certificate program starts actually in 4 days, 5 days from now. 5 days, June 4th. So that's exactly 5 days from now. And we are welcoming your questions about the certificate program or any other subject.
And before I introduce Christiana, in order to ask questions, just go down to reactions and then put your, the hand up, and then we'll call on you and you'll have an opportunity to ask a question. Christiana, very good to see you.
Hello, Tal. Hi, Yuval. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. Just briefly, I wanted to share, I was a high-performance athlete. I was the captain of the water polo team in Brazil. I was also a pioneer in women's water polo. And after my 17 years career in sport, I went to a financial institution. I worked for 28 years there. And I came to the United States to be head of human resource. So I've been always being passionate about high performance and how to create the conditions to realize human potential, both individually and collectively. But at a certain point, I started to experience more burnout, not only seeing within my work among financial institutions, not only the one that I used to work, also other ones. I started seeing that more with, I have 3 daughters, with adolescents and also elderly people, and even with among athletes. I said, what's going on? How high performance? Is it creating more burnout? Does it make sense? And then we use a term in Portuguese in sports when the ball is kicking on the court, like in a basketball court, and I didn't have an answer for that. And when I left the bank, it was a moment of transition. But then I was invited to a lecture at my daughter's schools about the science of happiness. And it was when I met Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, also a former athlete himself. He was a squash high-performance player, but he introduced for me what is the meaning of the science of happiness. And I just started to reframe everything that I learned in practice, in high performance, in sport, and also at the organizational setting, and to see how we can foster high performance, but in a sustainable way, with a well-being, with fulfillment. And that's what I've become passionate. My second passion is the science of happiness, working within high performance. So it's something that has been very transformative for me, for my daughters, for my family, and for everyone that I have the honor to touch. I've been working with the leadership programs at organizations and taking the science of happiness within, how can you work within an environment that is always looking for excellence. And I've learned a lot, and I strongly recommend this program. From the bottom of my heart, is something that I just learned how to see life in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Christiana. And you know, Christiana, you know, what I love most about your story is how you're integrating, you know, your personal background, your experience, you know, as Olympic athlete, as a top performer. So bringing your experiences through me-search and combining it with research from the field of positive psychology, from the field of the science of happiness. And, you know, for me, one of the highlights was listening to you in our HSAX event, where we get our fellow journeyers to present to everyone else. And this is how we exchange knowledge, understanding, and that's how we also get to know you better. So thank you.
So a pleasure, and I think it's worth it highlighting very quickly here. This is an online program that we choose the rhythm that we put in practice. But every 6 months, as Yuval and Tal just said, we have an opportunity to get together on a retreat. And this is an amazing opportunity to have face-to-face interactions that we exchange a lot. We have the positive things to learn from Tal in person, to interact among ourselves, because all of us have a common passion, how to flourish ourselves or human beings, how to create these conditions. And we have a lot, the diversity among us that we exchange during these retreats.
Thank you for bringing this up, Christiana. You know, when we started the Happiness Studies Academy, we're really debating whether to have our courses 100% online, 100% in person, you know, at a retreat place, or a hybrid. And what we eventually chose was 100% online. Why? For its simple reason, we wanted to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So we did that. At the same time, we didn't want to lose the obvious benefits of in-person interaction. So the way we solved for that was that we decided to have retreats. So as Christiana mentioned, every 6 months, we have a retreat in a different part of the world. So the last one was in New Jersey, but the one before that was in Cartagena, Colombia. The one before that was in Lake Como in Italy. Before that was Mexico and Miami and Shanghai. And the next ones, you know, are going to be all over the world. So we have these every 6 months where we get together for 3 full intensive days. Now, you don't have to be there in order to graduate. This is not a prerequisite, but you can be there if you want, and you can be there once because it's close to where you live, or you can be there twice a year. And in addition, when I travel to places, I meet our fellow journeyers and we get together for an afternoon just to hang out, to chat. These retreats are very special and very powerful, and are part of creating this community. Not a prerequisite, not a must, and there are people who choose not to go to, you know, they're perfectly happy with 100% online. But if you do choose to, you have the opportunity, the option of meeting in person with other fellow journeyers and with the faculty and staff. Thank you, Christiana. Now we'll open it up for your question, and let's begin with Anthony. If you can unmute yourself, if you can show yourself, that's better, but you don't have to.
Sure. Can you see me?
Can see you.
Hello, good. Great. I should say good afternoon. Hi, my name is Anthony. First of all, thank you for hosting this and for your presence. I'm sure you've got a lot of other things you could be doing, so I appreciate your accessibility. It means a lot considering, excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry, I have a call I need to take. I'll be right back. I apologize.
Okay.
If you can circle back, we'll appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, so now I'm going to call the next person Jahangir. And I must say, Jahangir, I grew up playing squash. My childhood hero was, do you want to guess who?
Yes, Jahangir Khan.
Exactly. Good to see you here.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much. Well, a little bit in terms of, firstly, thank you to all three of you for doing this. But other than that, I had mindfulness at a couple of universities, especially being Montclair State University in New Jersey. But I do it with about 6 other universities in New Jersey. And my main focus with that is I traverse them as a coach, as a mentor, as a way of guiding them through the aspects of food and breathing. So I think food plays a huge role in how your mind can be trained. And that's where is my expertise, and I take it from there. But my main question to you is, can one go directly into doing a master's program rather than doing the certificate? And that is my essence of asking this question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And first of all, thank you for doing what you're doing. Also, Montclair is literally around the corner from me.
Yeah, I know. I come there at least 3 times a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd love
But
to
only on the
learn
weeks
more
when...
about, I will look it up after. I'd love to learn more about your programs. But let me hand it over to Yuval to answer your question directly.
The short answer is yes. By all means, you can start with the master's program. But maybe we'll take this opportunity to explain the relationship between the certificate program and the master's program. The certificate program was started actually before the master's program. It is running for the past 7 years now. Actually, the certificate program that will start in 5 days from now, it's the 19th cohort. We're opening 3 cohorts a year, February, June, and October. So the June cohort starts just now. The certificate program is comprised of 2 courses, Introduction to Happiness Studies and Facilitating Happiness. Those 2 courses later on became the foundation of a master's degree. Around it, we've built 6 more courses. So we have altogether 8 courses in the master's degree. Actually, the certificate program now, it's a derivative of the master's program, despite the fact that the master program came way after. So anyone that is taking the certificate program can move on to the MA once the MA started. That means that they will not have to pay twice. Once they paid for the certificate program, this payment will be deducted from the price they will need to pay for the master's. They will need to go through those courses in the master's in terms of submitting papers for grading. While in the certificate program, we do not require that. In the MA, the same courses require grading and papers for grading to the professor. So this is the difference between the 2 courses in the certificate and in the master's. You can start off with the master's, move on to the MA, or you can start with the MA without having prior knowledge, either the certificate or other positive psychology or happiness out there. The MA prerequisite is a BA in any subject.
Any subject.
So that's the MA. Since the next MA cohort will start in April 2025, that is almost a year from now, then I would say for someone who is not sure whether he wants the certificate or the MA, I would say join the certificate. You started already your MA, and once the MA starts in April, you will move there and will not pay twice, and whatever you did will count for the MA. It will be easier for you to go through the MA once you start in April. You don't have to wait. Another advantage, one last advantage, is once you start now, you're part of the community now. The community is really, we take a lot of pride on the vibrant community and get-togethers, in-person get-togethers wherever Tal flies and visits, usually major cities and around the world, and the twice-a-year retreats that we do get together in person with many of our fellow journeyers. So, and there's of course, once someone joins, he already is a part of the ABC. The ABC is the Alumni and Business Club. So all of the activities of the ABC, this is a body that is creating monthly or bi-monthly activities and has numerous endeavors and amazing projects that they're running. And someone that joins actually joins that in the minute that they join.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much.
The
And
short
is the
answer, yes, you can start with the MA.
yeah, thank you. And is the master's in person?
The master's is online, 100% online, even though the master degree comes from Centenary University, which is also around the corner. But we have students from literally all over the world. Most of them came for graduation, but that was the first time they actually visited the campus. So it's 100% online.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
For some reason. Okay, great. Hello, and thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really excited about the certificate course, and I think the world needs a lot more happiness and, focus on how to practice acceptance. Like Christiana, I came from a corporate background and left the corporate background or my corporate job a couple of years ago when I saw such a high level of burnout. A lot of talk among the senior executives around mental well-being and happiness and recognition in the job, but really no action being taken. So I'm curious to know how the course might help to equip me as I try to move the needle on the importance of happiness in the workplace among folks who are really focused on the bottom line and think happiness at work is a nice to have versus a necessity.
Good. Great question, Cheryl. And the number one reason why today a company would call me is because of burnout, because of the price that they know they're paying for sustained stress without recovery. So here's the general answer to your question. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't think, if we didn't know that we could shift the needle. I'm not here to entertain. If the lectures or webinars are entertaining, great, bonus. But the main reason is because we really believe we know that it can bring about change, actual change, whether it's in the organization, whether it's in your coachee, if you're a coach, or your client, if you're a therapist, or in your family, or of course in yourself, to shift the needle, to bring about change. This is our reason for being, which means that the whole program focuses on that. How can you bring the research on stress, because there's a lot of research on stress and averting burnout? How can you bring that research and make sure that the team in your organization actually implements the change? So a lot of the research that we talk about, a lot of the exercises that we engage in individually as a group revolve around bringing about change. Not only that, we have the community. So we have a lot of experience within the community. Of Christiana, for example, who knows a lot about stress, Olympic athlete, senior management. What has she done? What does the research do that connects to what she has done? And how can you communicate it? And how can you ensure compliance? So we spend a lot of time just focusing not just on the content and the research, but in addition to that, on how can you take the content and research and assimilate it in your life, integrate it into the day-to-day of your team. And therefore, we cover change on the neural level, on the individual level, on the interpersonal level, and also change on an organizational level. Again, this is our reason for being. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Anjani.
Hello.
Hey.
This feels a little surreal. You've been like you're like my big celebrity. I've read all your books and I've always given all your books to all my students, and this feels how I've seen people when they meet like their superstars feel. So I'm a little nervous and jittery, but it's so nice to be here and it's so nice to meet you live. I cannot believe this. So I'm really excited about this certificate course, obviously. Anyways, I'm a little nervous. Yes, my question was actually to do with this, the wheel or the percentages you talked about. And there's someone very dear to me who falls into that group where they have a biological predisposition to a lot of depression and also experience a lot of physical abuse as a child. Is there much hope for them to actually change that percentage in that case? And again, thank you so much. Your work has been so important to me. It's so hard to explain how much it means to me. Anyways, yes, that's my question.
Thank you, Anjani. First of all, for your kind words. Second, for the work that you're doing. And third, for your question. You know, I'm often asked about the possibilities of the field of happiness studies or the potential of the field of positive psychology. And my answer to that is that it's not unlimited. There is a limit on how much we can do within the field or on how much we ought to try to do. Meaning, someone who is experiencing psychopathology, who is depressed, I'm talking clinical depression, not the sadness that we all feel 10 times a day, but someone who's clinically depressed or experiences severe anxiety, well, that person should see a therapist or a psychiatrist, because therapists, psychiatrists have saved lives. I know some people intimately well whose lives were saved by a psychologist, a professional therapist. And for people like that, I wouldn't say, no, go and see someone who has who's gone through a certificate program in happiness studies, or a master's degree, or a PhD in positive psychology, for that matter. No, go see a professional, a therapist who knows how to deal and what to do. Having said that, Anjani, having said that, the field of happiness studies, the field of positive psychology can and does help treating psychopathology or psychological disorders or depression or anxiety. It helps, and it can help even more. More and more psychologists today are studying the interventions that we talk about as part of the certificate program. Because we know, for example, that yes, medication can help someone with a strong predisposition to depression. We also know that physical exercise works in the same way. In some cases, it can come instead of, in most cases, it can increase the impact of medication or psychotherapy. I often tell my students, I'm not a therapist. My PhD is in organizational psychology. But if I were a therapist, the first question that I would ask my client is, do you exercise regularly? Because if they don't, that's the first thing that I would recommend they do. First of all, exercise, if at all possible, regularly. And now let's talk and do what's necessary to help you heal. Or we know how effective and impactful mindfulness practices are. I mean, what Jehangir is doing is priceless. And Johnny, what people have been doing in India for thousands of years, yoga, or in China for thousands of years, Qigong, has an impact and can help as a complementary or, and this is important, as preventative. Far fewer people would fall into depression or anxiety or other psychopathologies if they exercised regularly and did meditation, some form of mindfulness practice on some regular basis, or would spend more time with their loved ones as opposed to on social media. So the field can help a great deal in shifting that percentage from 10% to 20 to 80% even. Having said that, in some cases, a stronger intervention is necessary. In the form of psychotherapy or in the form of medication or some other intervention by a professional that can help. And even then, on top of that, the science of happiness, the interventions that I spoke about and many others can help even more. Thank you for your question.
I want to refer to a few questions in the chat. What is the weekly commitment of time for the certificate program? So my guess is between 2 to 3 hours a week. It varies because it is the 4 sections of 15 minutes, so it's 1 hour of pre-recorded material. There's the exercises really vary from week to week, and there is the live webinar that is happening, and by that I'm answering other concerns on Thursdays. It is actually, and one of our students, Nelly, thank you for putting it so accurately on the chat. We try to accommodate students from all over the world. Literally, we have students from 93 countries. So 1 week it is convenient for half the globe, and the other week it shifts to a different hour that is convenient to the other half of the globe. So I know this webinar, for example, now it's for some people it's quite inconvenient. For the other half, it's more convenient, and next week it will shift. So this is what we do with the live webinar. If you missed the webinar and you weren't there and you couldn't, then it is all recorded and you can watch it again. Do we have exercises after each topic? The answer is yes. Each week, it's a weekly structure with pre-recorded lectures, exercises that are related specifically to that week's content, and the live webinar. So, of course, we have exercises after each topic. No grading in certificate program, correct? Yes, no grading, correct. That is absolutely correct. There's no grading in the certificate program. There is grading in the MA for every week, month, topic, course, and of course, a general MA. If one is traveling 1 week to work and cannot connect, live webinars dedicated to the time that week. That's okay. Can we make it up for the following weeks? Absolutely. You can always, there's something that needs to be said about the certificate program. It's a year-long program. It's built to be a year-long program, meaning that you cannot take it in less than a year, because you have to go through the assignments, and if you finish that, you cannot move on to the second week until a week gone by. This was done on purpose, of course. This is a pedagogical decision to let the content sink in and to let you dwell with the material. So that is the minimum amount of time that you can take the certificate program. There is no maximum amount of time. You can take the program for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. You can stop for a week, or you can stop for a month and you continue later on. That's okay. Having said that, many of our students that finish the certificate in a year or more than that stay with the live webinars for life. You will keep getting invited to the weekly live webinars every week, way after the year ends. So this is also part of what you're getting with this certificate program. And Tal, a question for you in the chat.
Just if I can add, Yuval,
Sure.
to what you were saying. So, as Yuval said, it's 2 to 3 hours a week, very flexible. Meaning, if you want to spend 8 hours a week, there is that option too. If there are weeks where you can't spend, and you don't have an hour, you don't have time, maybe you're on vacation or you're just, stressed at work and you don't want to burn out, then you don't need to engage. People, some or fellow journeyers sometimes would say to me, Tal, I'm behind. And I say, behind what? There is no right pace. The fastest you can do it is in a year. But we have people just graduated now. After 3 years, they did it at their pace. Not only that, we have fellow journeyers who are doing it for the second or third time, meaning they went through it. And since you have access for life to the material, you can go through it again. Every time it's a reminder. Every time you understand it at a higher level or a deeper level. So there is a great deal of flexibility. Why? Because each journey is different. And by the way, I'm not just talking about each journey, between you and the person next to you. It's also each one of your journeys is different. So when I went through it the first time, it's very different from what I'm going through right now. Your time, your pace, a great deal of flexibility. And again, all for the purpose of making it the most effective and impactful journey for you. Now I'm ready for the question, Yuval.
One second. The lifetime access is for all the material, pre-recorded videos, etc. The answer is yes. The lifetime access is not only to the live webinars, but also for all the materials, and all the material that you wrote. There are some materials that are very private, some exercises that you wrote, answers to some reflections, some that you wrote. We always ask our students to write something that is interesting, actionable, and meaningful to them while watching the lectures and things like that. So all of that is, and all of the content and the lectures is with lifetime access. And now to the question, Tal. The question was, what is the definition of well-being? But I want to extend, that was the question in the chat, but I want to extend that a little bit. What are the different definitions to well-being or happiness? And what is your take on that in general? And it's an opportunity maybe to elaborate a little bit about the core methodology, the SPIRE methodology that we are using.
Sure. Yuval, I'm not up to date. I don't know how many people there are in the world today, but say close to 9 billion. They're about that amount of, minus children under the age of 2. I don't think they have a definition of happiness, but it's about that number of different definitions of happiness. We all have our own, and that's fine. The definition that we use is an integration of ideas from ancient philosophers and modern neuroscientists. It integrates Eastern, Western, African, Asian, European thought, bringing it together. And the model that we came up with, again, we did not invent that model. We integrated that model. The model that we follow is the SPIRE model. The SPIRE model, bringing together East, West, ancient, and modern, includes 5 elements. The S of SPIRE stands for spiritual well-being. The P stands for physical well-being. The I stands for intellectual well-being. The R stands for relational well-being. And the E stands for emotional well-being. So spiritual well-being, the S, is about meaning and purpose and about being mindful and present. That's when we experience spiritual well-being. Physical well-being is about nutrition and exercise, as we discussed, and rest and recovery, whether it's sleep or just pausing. So that's physical well-being, the P of SPIRE. The I of SPIRE is about curiosity. It's about deep learning, which are critically important for a full and fulfilling life. R, relational well-being. Number 1 predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. It's about kindness and generosity that contribute not just to a better world, also to a happier self. And finally, emotional well-being, which is about learning to deal with painful emotions, which are part and parcel of every life. You know, the last thing in the world that I would like you to think is that I'll go through this certificate program and by the end of it, I'll be happy 100% of the time. Or I'll experience just joy and ecstasy constantly. No, you'll have your ups and downs. But how do you deal with the downs? How do you magnify the ups? How do you bring more gratitude and appreciation and joy and love and excitement to your life? That's emotional well-being. Spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. And around each one of these constructs, we introduce, of course, interventions for self and for others. Okay, why don't we, Anthony, are you back
Just
with
before
us?
Anthony, a quick, Anthony's with us, and actually he wrote his question in the chat,
Oh.
but let him speak because it's a long question. It's a good question. So 1 second. The requirements to get accepted to the certificate program, there's no requirement to get accepted to the certificate program. The MA, of course, but the certificate, no. The retreats are not a mandatory part of the certificate program. It's you can join that, you can enjoy that. By all means, you'll be invited to all of the retreats, and hopefully you will enjoy this vibrant community. Having said that, they are not mandatory. They're not essential part of the certificate to earn the certificate. Yes, there is. When you get the certificate, you get actually. So you're becoming a certified happiness trainer. We specifically use this terminology, and there is a short course after that if you want to take that, and you become a certified happiness coach. It's a specific coaching session for that. The cost of the program is usually $3,900. Currently, for the participants of this webinar, we are allowing a coupon code which is live500, and which gets you a $500 discount. So it will be $3,400 for the participant of this webinar. You will get that in email as well. It's in the chat as well. Onen, if you can put it in the chat as well again, so that will be helpful. And Tal, please take Anthony's question. Sorry.
Anthony, can you unmute yourself, please?
Thanks. I appreciate it. I apologize about the interruption earlier. I think, like one of the previous speakers, I also feel very happy to be here and speak with you. I've heard you speak. Actually, I think the first time I heard was listening to you in the dubbed version in Spanish with the bank BBVA, and it was very impactful. So that was about a year ago. A lot of the questions that I put in the chat have been answered, but one thing, and I've done similar types of programs in the Chicagoland area where I'm from, and one of the things unfortunately, their organization is recently closed, and one of the things I liked was that they also had an emotional curriculum component. And I'm curious, how does the happiness aspect tie to awareness of emotions in terms of identification, without necessarily saying there's positive or negative. Then I had a follow-up question as well. So those for my other question would be, a lot of times these programs I like, but I find coming from a minority background, my family's Mexican American, we didn't always have access to things that created happiness. There was more anxiety, for example. And I'm curious, how does this happiness study kind of item allow for those disparities in people's experiences where someone may have had more anxiety just because of where they came from, or if they're in a war-torn community like you spoke of, how can they achieve that given the circumstances they're living through?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Two very important questions. So first of all, about awareness of emotions. I don't talk about positive and negative emotions. I talk about painful and pleasurable emotions. Why? Because painful emotions are natural. They are part and parcel, as I mentioned, of every life, including the life of the happiest people. And when we look at them as negative, when we are assigning a value judgment to them, that doesn't necessarily help us. In fact, what it usually does is it reinforces and strengthens them. So if I experience sadness and I say to myself, Tal, you shouldn't experience sadness. You're the happiness professor. What happens? Immediately, the sadness that I experienced skyrockets. Or if I say to myself, Tal, don't experience envy. You should be better than that. Immediately, the envy that I experience, which is a natural human emotion, we all experience it at times, that immediately skyrockets. The paradox is that when I accept and embrace these painful emotions, they don't overstay their welcome. They leave just as they came. In the words of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, what you resist persists. And accepting and embracing painful emotions, then we naturally deal with them. And they leave just as they came. Professor Martin Seligman, who's one of my mentors, has said many times in the past that if he went back to 1998, which is when he founded the field of positive psychology, he would not call it positive psychology. He would call it well-being psychology, maybe, or something to that effect, or happiness, but he wouldn't call it positive psychology because the connotation thereof is that the rest of psychology is negative, problematic. So that's around that. Now, in terms of access, as you will, if you join us the very first week, I talk about this. When we think about happiness, we're thinking about it on three levels. The first level is the universal. And Anthony, that's common to you and to me and someone who was, raised in Kyoto or Nairobi or Durban or Calcutta. That's universal. For example, universally, we need to move, exercise. Universally, We are creatures who seek a sense of meaning and purpose in our life. Universally, there are certain foods that agree with us and certain foods that don't. Universal. No place in the world do they like and enjoy, poisonous plant or cyanide. There are some universal truths about human nature. That's top level. Second level, cultural. Mexican culture is different than Asian culture. A Mexican who was raised in the United States is different than a Mexican who was raised in Guadalajara. So there are cultural differences that are very important to study. And then finally, there are individual differences. There's the universal, there is the cultural, and there is the personal. And when it comes to the personal, to the individual, two people raised even in the same household, not just the same culture, the same household, are different in terms of what they find meaningful. And what they find meaningful is determined by their culture as well, and by the fact that we all seek meaning. And there are individual differences. For the first two levels, the universal and the cultural, we need research. For the personal, for the individual, it's not research. We need me-search. And in our program, we look at the universals. The SPIRE elements are universal, but how they're manifested is very different in Mexico than it is in Kyoto, Nairobi, or Auckland. And then, no less important, let's look at the personal. And that's why we do so much work looking inside, not just looking outside, exploring and experimenting. And then we get the whole picture. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beautiful answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Or maybe
Jorge.
take the next hand. Yeah.
Yes.
You're still muted, Jorge. Jorge, if you can unmute yourself.
Jorge, if you can unmute yourself, please. Okay. We'll get back to you. I'll call on Arnold, and then we'll get back to you, Jorge, and we'll hear your question. Arnold, please.
Hi, Tal. Nice to meet you. I think the happiness program or happiness attracts people from a squash background, because I was actually born in Zimbabwe and my whole upbringing was related to squash. And I think I'm a bit older than you because I come from the days of Hashim Khan and Jeff Hunt and Jonah Barrington and all those players. And I must say, squash has been a very, very big part of my life. But anyway, just to tell you that I'm a radiologist and I live in the Washington, D.C. area. I've been here and I run a happiness program for a group of about 100 radiologists. And I also run a morning meditation program called EYCBO, which stands for Everything You Can't Buy Online. I was just wondering, one of the reasons I'm going to be doing the certification program, Tal, is to see how I can adapt this to a group of physicians. And I've looked at all the happiness programs or well-being programs for physicians, and I think the problem is traction, right? We have a very big wellness program in our group, and I honestly think there's very little traction. And I was wondering, once I do the certification program, right? Sorry, I apologize about my dog. Once I do the certification program, have you worked with physicians? Is your program, I know it's adaptable to the corporate environment, but I think the physician environment is very different to the corporate environment. Will we be able to do something for a group of physicians?
thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Great questions. First of all, Arnold, don't apologize about the dog. You know, there's actually research showing that dogs, pets, make us happier.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my students wrote her dissertation, PhD on this topic.
Oh, my dog's actually on CBD oil. So, you know, just to let you know.
Well, there are dogs of a physician. All right. So, and I look forward to having squash discussions in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the answer is yes. There's a lot that you'll be able to take out from this program and apply specifically to the physician community. In fact, we've had a number of physicians taking, actually some are still taking our program, and they're using it day in and day out, whether it's with other physicians or vis-a-vis clients that whom they're seeing. Now, here is the thing about the program. You know, I mentioned that there are different journeys that people go through when they go through this program. What does it depend on? It depends on focus. Because if you go through the program, and, a year, let's say you do it in a year, and what you're focusing on is how can I help physicians, my fellow physicians, avert burnout, become more empathic, have more energy, find more meaning in their work, whatever it is. You will go through a very particular journey, and you will find material, evidence-based, from the science of happiness that you'll be able to apply to the physician community. Now, what if you go through the exact same texts, same videos, different meetings, because every week the live webinar is, of course, different, but generally similar material with a different focus. This time the focus is on how can I bring more joy to my life? It will be a different journey. Similar, of course, similar foundation. If you focus just on personal joy, it doesn't mean that it will not help your work as a physician. But because the focus is different, you will get different things out of it. So we have participants who are managers, and they want to introduce the science of happiness in their team or in their organization. And every week they find interventions that are relevant for their workplace, just like every week you will find. I guarantee you, every week you will find interventions that are relevant to the particular group that you're interested in. And as you think about this, what I hope that you will do, Arnold, is share it, of course, with your group of 100 radiologists and beyond. Because our goal is to bring these ideas, not to a district or a hospital or a school board, but to bring it to as many people as possible in as many places as possible. So I really look forward to the curriculum that you build for your group, and again, beyond your group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tal. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. And by the way, there are a few answers in the chat from current students regarding your question. You can read that as well. It will add to Tal's answer. Tal, there is a question that keeps coming back. I don't know how you will relate to that. Anyway, Tal, what's the most important topic about happiness? Now, give me the secret, fast. You can give me something. I don't need all that. Give me something very fast.
So you don't need a year-long course, right? You just want
no. Just give me something now. I'll be happy, and that's it. Prescribe the pill.
Yeah, it reminds me, Yuval, a few years ago, I was interviewed by I was giving a keynote at a coaching conference, and I was interviewed by the newspaper around this. They got a lot of publicity for that conference, and the interviewer comes to me, and we have a lovely interview, and or lovely conversation, and then after about an hour, she says, "Okay, Tal, I get all this, but I'm looking for the wow. I'm looking for the wow. Just say something that will, change, everything for us." And I think for a few seconds, and I say, "Okay, are you ready for the wow?" She says, "Yes, I am." I said, "Are you really ready?" She says, "Yes." And she like moves forward. I said, "Here is the wow. The wow is that there is no wow." Why? Because it's about introducing those small changes consistently, day in and day out. If there is a wow, it's that small changes make a big difference when consistently applied. If there was a wow, believe me, first of all, I would have taken that pill. Second, I would have disseminated freely to everyone. But the wow is that there is no wow, and that it takes work. Just like, it's the same as someone would ask me, give me the wow or the secret ingredient to becoming the best tennis player in my state. I'll tell you, there is no wow. Go work out, spend time on the court. Or I want to be a great pianist. Go practice, do the work. Yes, learn the theory and then practice. And it's the same with any skill, including the skill of living well. Yeah, learn the basics, learn the theory, and then go ahead and apply it. And it's a lot easier to apply it when you're part of a community than it is by yourself. I hope it's not disappointing, but c'est la vie, it is what it is.
Who is the certificate program mainly aimed to? People who want to become coaches, people in corporate, suffering from burnout, for personal use, all of the above.
Yeah, it's definitely the last one. It's all of the above and more. Because part of our nature is that we want to become happier. Not only that, it's not just about becoming happier, it's also about becoming more successful at what we do. Because if you increase levels of happiness, you also become a better manager, partner, parent, coach, physician. So increasing levels of happiness, what all the evidence is pointing to is, first of all, we know good in and of itself. We all want to be happier, and it's good as a means towards an end, meaning of being more successful, more effective at whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're a teacher or a business person or a therapist or a medical doctor or a coach or a parent. So the answer is yes.
Will you always be accessible in the classes as you are now? That's a question from the chat.
It's a question from the chat. As long as I live, yes. I don't think I'll be able to come after that. But even though, today with the AI, you never know. But yes, as I said, I'm a fellow journeyer. I go through the same process and journey with you. These retreats are amazing for our fellow journeyers. They're amazing for me too. I mean, Yuval, how do we, when we get out of a retreat, I mean, we're walking on air. It's a high. And then it's good to have these injections for all of us. So the answer is yes.
Okay, Tal, we have one more hand.
Two more hands, I see. So first of all, Jorge, do you want to try again?
Jorge, Jorge, yeah, sorry. He wasn't able to unmute himself. You're right. So Jorge, you want, yeah, great.
No, you want to unmute yourself? How do you do it? Top right, I think. Top right of your screen. No. Jorge, please, why don't we do this? Why don't you write your question in the chat and then we'll respond to it. Ellie, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hi there, Tal. Hi, Yuval. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for this, for the webinar. Wow, there was so much of it that related to my life, but I'm trying to decide how it can be incorporated into some of the things I'm doing in the future. And so I'm somebody who was diagnosed very late with ADHD. So I've had a lot of that emotional baggage related to being a woman and having ADHD, but not knowing what was going on for all those years. So I deal with those ups and downs a lot. But because I ended up going through a period where I was constantly trying to find out what medications would work and what didn't, anyway, medications did not work at all. Mm-hmm. So I had to find other ways. And so I started to go towards the more holistic things that you talk about, mindfulness, just meditation, walking, meditation, different things that I just naturally incorporated in my life. And it has made such an incredible difference in my daily state of being, So that's first of all. And then second of all, I was a caregiver for my father towards the end of his life for like the past 8 years. He passed a year ago today. A year ago today, he passed. And I was just reflecting on that. And I'm in the midst right now of becoming an end-of-life doula and working with people emotionally, spiritually, and just helping them transition at the end of life. And nothing medical, completely separate. We're the eyes and ears of hospice, but we're not. We work with the caregivers and the family caregiver, which I was, and I didn't have that support. And when I saw this program, I jumped at the opportunity to be a support to people that are working with their families and caring for loved ones at home. So I'm trying to figure out how this bridges in the midst of end of life, and to see if there's a way, like, where do I insert myself? I mean, sure, I'm going to be involved in helping towards the end of life, but where is the bridge to assist people to make life better and to have a better end of life? Because you can't just jump in at the end of life and say, this is what we're going to do, and everything's going to be fine. People are dealing with illness. They're dealing with all kinds of things. Of course. Emotionally, with family, all this crap. Everybody's got something. And so, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to be in connection with people and, talk to them and get them through and to help them get to hold space, basically. And so I'm trying to figure out happiness, holding space, end of life. I mean, I don't know how to put it together exactly, but I was drawn here, and I wanted to see if you had any insight into that.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about it. It's a great question. First of all, before I respond to that, let me just recommend a book called ADHD 2.0. I don't know if you've come across it. ADHD 2.0. It's by Edward, exactly, Hallowell and John Ratey. Mm-hmm. John Ratey is someone we read a lot of in our program. He's a Harvard Medical School psychiatrist. Anyway, but to your question, first of all, I love the fact that you are talking about a bridge. The metaphor that I use for leadership is a leader is a bridge builder. So how do you create that bridge? You know, when I responded to Anjani earlier about how the science of happiness can help, I talked about it being preventative. On the one hand, you're less likely to become depressed or clinically, experience clinical anxiety if you practice the prescriptions of the science of happiness. It's preventative. And when it does happen, it can augment, add to the traditional interventions of psychotherapy or of medication. And I want to say the same two things when applied to end of life. If we practice the SPIRE elements or the interventions associated with the SPIRE elements, if we practice them throughout life, we're more likely to get to the end of life in a good place or in a better place, because we were closer to fulfilling our potential as humans. Fewer regrets, stronger or more resilience. So it's preventative in that way. In addition, applying the SPIRE elements to end of life is critical and can help a great deal. Whether it's the spiritual, meaning and mindfulness, whether it's the physical, movement and touch, whether it's the intellectual, maintaining curiosity, whether it's relational, how important is that at the end of life? And of course, emotional, learning to deal with painful emotions. Remember, what you resist persists. How do we cultivate gratitude? Which, as you know, there's a lot of research on that at the end of life. One of my dear friends and colleagues is Maria Sirois, S-I-R-O-I-S. And she has done a lot of work bridging the science of happiness with end of life experiences. Maria Sirois, S-I-R-O-I-S. So that's for further reading and reflection. Thank you, Ellie, for this important question.
Okay, I think we wrapped this up. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. We'll end with a short video showing you some of the experiences we're having in our retreat, so you can see how it looks like to be part of HSA. If we didn't answer any of your questions, I apologize in advance. You please write to info@happinessstudies.academy. We'll make sure to answer all of your questions. As I mentioned before, the course starts in 5 days. And for the participants of this webinar, there is a special $500 discount. You use the coupon code LIVE500. You go to happinessstudies.academy website, you go to the certificate page, and on the bottom you have 2 forms. You can pay there and you can use your coupon code. There you can join us. We'll see a short video and we end with that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, wherever you are. And whenever you are, because the timing really is crazy here. I see people here in the middle of the night. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And thank you, Christiana, for your lovely words. Thank you, Yuval. Take care, everyone.
Coming to an HSA retreat is absolutely amazing. To me, the word that comes to mind the most is connection.
So the retreat has been great. We're really connecting, having lunch with people, just the conversations we're having. I actually have found a mentee that I'm going to be working with. I now have a whole bunch of new friends. It's just great. I can't wait for the next one.
For me, it was life-changing, knowing very authentic and generous people from all over the world just open up my imagination to so many possibilities. Makes me just want to improve in so many areas I didn't even know about.
It's just a wonderful experience. It's an experience that I would recommend to anybody. This is my third retreat, and definitely I will be next year in the next retreat, wherever it is.
And people of HSA are really a huge family. I recommend everyone to come and to have this experience. It's a unique experience, you have to do it.
There's so much packed into like 3 days. Yeah. And there's still more to come.
The community is just unbelievably good. You get in here and you know you've got fantastic support in every which way possible.
Didn't expect such a level of preparation, and it is just mind-blowing. You know, they treating us like princesses and princes, or like I'm coming for the best date of my life.
People hug each other, they smile to each other, they support each other, which is amazing because this is not something you can learn. Such a passion towards other people can only come if you have the happiness in your heart and that you care for other people. And the HSI community is the community of people who care for others.